Just swipe it. I brought a pen.
Just a reminder, when you speak, just press your mic to green so that it can be recorded on YouTube, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Village of Ruidoso, City of Ruidoso Downs Consolidated Dispatch Joint Board Regular Meeting. Today's date is October the 13th of 2021. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Chief Scott,
Here.
Joe Kasuboski,
Here.
Counselor Lutterman,
Here?
Counselor Miller.
Here.
Welcome, Counselor Miller. Chief Thetford.
Here.
And we have a new person with us, Assistant Fire Chief, and I'm not going to say your last name, you are, if you don't mind.
Michael Geritano.
Oh, it's Geritano?
Yes.
Oh, well, that was easy. Okay. Are you here?
Yes.
Chief Chavez.
Here.
Thank you all.
I would like to ask for the approval of the agenda.
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second.
Okay, who was second? Okay. Okay, Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Joe Kasuboski,
Aye.
Counselor Miller,
Aye.
Chair Scott,
Aye.
Chief Thetford,
Aye.
Assistant Chief Garitani.
Geritano.
See, I knew I would mess it up. Geritano
Aye.
and Chief Chavez.
Aye.
Thank you all. Geritano.
We'll move on to regular items. The next is approval of minutes. Do we need to approve each one separately, or
No, we can do them all together if you all agree.
like a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we accept the minutes as of April 14th, regular meeting, May 2021 workshop meeting, May 27th, 21 special meeting, and June 7th, 21 special meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Chief Thetford,
Aye.
Chair Scott,
Aye.
Joe Kasuboski,
Aye.
Counselor Miller,
Aye.
Assistant Chief Geritano.
Aye.
I'm going to, Chief Chavez.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next item is a presentation by Sheriff Wood. Sheriff, would you come forward?
Yeah,
Just sit down right here.
Vaughn, would you turn on the mic first? Sheriff Wood? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Scott, members of the Consolidated Dispatch Board. I appreciate it. Michael Wood, Lincoln County Sheriff. If it's all the same to you,
Would you take it off?
should I?
Yes.
It's actually been helping me. I'm under the attack of some allergens, and
Oh,
it's actually helping filter it out. But I will take it off. Thank you for letting me attend the meeting again and putting me on the agenda. My presentation will be short, in that I want to again reiterate my intention and desire to come aboard.
Not on.
Obviously, I can't commit any funds at the moment. I mean, you know how that works, but I will relate to you another instance happening just this very morning, where
It should be that one.
my agency coming aboard with yours would certainly have benefited us all. We ended up in a car chase this morning southbound out of Capitan, New Mexico, with an armed subject, a wanted felon who we've been looking for. And with the weather, weather always seems to affect Buck Mountain. It was exceptionally bad this morning. And not only that, we had two dispatchers working at the same time. Rather than pick up my microphone and call one central location and have all that information disseminated among the agencies involved, we were playing phone tag, and it created a lot of confusion. So there again, That I would reiterate what I think is the need for us to explore the possibility of coming on board with you in this endeavor. You know that with the help of Joe Kenmore, Katie, and some of you others, we did do a little bit of a study and determined that the Horton complex would be very difficult with the system that's in place. We determined that the airport, I can talk to all cars and all stations from the airport. Even though I know that that's not going to be an immediate possibility, or may not be a possibility at all, even in the future, I'm still wanting to come aboard and do this because I feel like it's necessary for the citizens in this county, for us to be able to come together and enhance the services that we provide these folks, because we fell a little short today, and luckily no one was hurt, but he is still on the run. School was about to take up, so the kiddos and the buses were running. It just wasn't an ideal scenario to continue with a car chase and try to take him out in some way or another. So we erred on the side of caution, Chief Chavis's agency and mine as well, because of all of those reasons. So, but at any rate, there again is just another example of why I feel this is so important, so necessary. So I would lean on you folks because you're there. You've done it on a small scale now. Inviting us aboard or getting us aboard, I would lean on you for guidance, direction. Where do we need to go next? Do I need to do a study? Do I need to look at possibly, Chair Scott had an idea here a couple of weeks ago when he met with Chief Chavis and I about possibly having a tower at the airport that the Horton complex could hit and then get out to all my cars and stations as well. So I guess we would just have to look at what we need to do some sort of a study like that, see if that would accommodate the need that we would have to allow us to come aboard. I'm encouraged when I met with Manager Dodge that you folks aren't going to be that long getting into that building, it doesn't sound like. So, and it's the future plans that you've made sounds like it will accommodate us. So I'm very excited about this. I'm hoping that we can make this successful. I'm going to do all that I can. I invited County Manager Ira Pearson today. Joe Kenmore obviously is my go-to guy when it comes to communications. So in a nutshell, just know I am still very much interested in this and willing to do whatever I possibly can to make this happen because it's just that necessary.
Mr. President, may I ask?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you gone to, is it something that you're going to have to go to the commissioners or how, okay, so how are you going to fund this to come in with us?
There again, that's a challenge that I have, and I know that I can lean on the county manager for assistance when it comes to doing that. I won't say that we're in the black, but what I'm being told is we're not that far from it with the PILT grant money, this millions we got from the federal government. I think that if it's reasonable, I'm very blessed at the moment to have a county board of commissioners, a board of county commissioners who supports law enforcement and thus far has supported me in my first few months of my term. They've supported me like gangbusters. And they kind of say, okay, you're the sheriff, you take care of this. Just here's what you need, just tell us what you need. So again, I can't speak for them when it comes to funds, but I certainly will put a presentation together and get on the agenda once we figure out percentages, the percentage the village shares with the city, et cetera, where we're at. I'm going to have to get with two of my local municipalities and let them know you're going to have to pony up. Mm-hmm. Capitan, Carrizoso's got to pony up because they're not right now. And so we got to figure all those percentages out and work the bugs out of it. But I intend to make whatever presentation I need to my commissioners to let them know that this, in the interest of public safety, this is necessary. We know we're going to end up with 3 new commissioners next year. 3 of ours currently term out. Don't know what we're going to get. I haven't even heard of anyone who's thrown their hat in or even considering it yet. But hopefully it'll be some like-minded individuals that support us. So again, that nuts and bolts, got to get that together. First and foremost, I think Joe will agree with me, I think you will too, can it work? can I talk to all cars and all stations from the Horton, whether it be hitting another repeater or a tower tall enough to do it? That's going to be the biggest challenge I think I have. Because as it stands, it doesn't look like I can. But with Chief Scott's idea, it might very well work. It might be the solution.
Chief Chavez, what is okay, so how tall is the one at Horton? It's,
So what we proposed on it, what they were saying is we're going to need 181 foot. So that's what we have. That's going to be constructed once this project moves forward. Speaking with Sheriff and Chief Scott a couple weeks ago, there was an idea that we could put a microwave or voter repeater.
What it's called. Yeah, sort of a link.
So some type of link.
Sure. The voter was the word that was stuck in my head from earlier conversations, and apparently that wasn't quite the correct piece of equipment, but there is a piece of equipment that we would need.
Well, there again, I mean, we've got a new tower coming up on Buck Mountain right now. I mean, it's not, I guess, that far out from being, and thank goodness for it, because, boy, when that wind picks up on this old one, we're in trouble. I mean, all you gotta do is listen to the radio, and you probably do, and think, geez, how do you do this? How are you guys doing this? It's a struggle, it's a challenge.
how much would that extra, the voter or whatever tower,
That, I'm not sure. That, I mean, all this is brand new to me. I think Kenmore might be able to explain that a little better. He's more knowledgeable when it comes to the communications and the radios.
I think we've moved past the item itself, but the next item is where we were going to discuss this anyways.
apologize.
No worries.
I apologize.
So, thank you, Sheriff, and remain there. The next item on the agenda is the discussion and possible action for the purchase of equipment to perform a feasibility study, and so now we can go into that.
Joe.
Sorry, Joe.
Yes, sorry, Joe, I kind of,
Joe's a good sport.
Chairman, Commissioners, Joe Kenmore, Office of Emergency Services Director. You're talking about a remote base. That's what would allow us to do what we want to do at the airport, and possibly with a backup on Buck. And it would allow us to choose from dispatch what repeater they want to talk off of. So it would go from the dispatch at Horton out to, let's say, to the airport. And then it would allow them to choose from the airport via remote what
repeater.
Right.
So I guess we need to maybe back up a little bit. My thought was, we were talking brick and mortar out at the airport. It was the idea, or another location. But if we don't need the brick and mortar, if we can put the equipment, I think it actually works better in that we have the ability to have dispatch within the village. It's closer for most of the entities that are involved. It's going to be easier for the employees to get there during weather. So if we could figure out a way to remotely do that, I think it would work better in the long run for all of us.
Yes, sir.
So what this remote station, what approximately would that cost?
I hope I'm saying this high when I say it, but I think 30,000 per, so at least 2, but possibly 3.
Okay, so as much as 90, but you think that's,
As much as 90, but I don't know that to be a fact. I'm quoting something that I have seen, but not knowing what else it might take. I don't think it would be greater than that per site,
okay,
and it may not be, but just 2, Buck and the airport that it would be needed at, and we would just talk to it from the Horton site.
from the Horton site, okay.
If you don't mind, so as far as the interests of the village, the Downs, and trying to bring on the county, would it be in all of our best interests, time and money, to have, as you know, with the state, like a sit rep, have some third party or someone come in, do these studies, and have an answer of data and research and the exact equipment on paper to make sure that we're going in the right direction and we don't spend unneeded time and money, because as far as the village and our consolidated dispatch now, the brick and mortar has been chosen. We don't want to go backwards. And technology is so far advanced, and we're behind as far as our dispatches. The talking part, I feel like, is the easy part, and we already have the Horton. So moving forward, it's a matter of numbers.
Absolutely.
Instead of trying to recreate the wheel and us going backwards, let's move forward and get the study and see what that costs all of us, and be done with it and not have everything up in the air like we are right now.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I couldn't help but agree with that. That's imperative, and that will show us whether or not this will work, if we're spinning our wheels, or if we're not going to be able to do it, or if we will be able to.
And what part of it we do or perhaps don't need.
And Joe and Chiefs, so just looking at what we have out at the airport, we have our antennas and our repeater set up out there on our beacon tower. Would we have to put up a separate tower for this, or would it be more feasible or
I
more?
would think it would be more feasible.
To put up a separate tower?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I believe so. And a separate site.
Right.
And I think knowing that power is important, to maybe have a generator set in place, a
Right.
switching generator, but I think that would be the very best.
Right. And right now out there, we do have a generator at the main FBO building.
Yes, sir.
And we do have one over at the ARF building.
Yes, sir.
So we do have 2 generators out there.
And that might prove to be very helpful if it would comfortably power what you need.
Right.
As well as that.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't believe there's more room or what needs we're going to have in the future for this move, if you will, for antennas and equipment. And then honestly, the place it's at versus what the FAA allows us as far as height, antennas, and all of us being on a separate location at the airport with power and generators, more of a new site, if you will.
I think that if we could if we could drive to Horton Center and see if we could talk to Sierra Blanca Regional at that
Right.
point in a mobile radio, I think that would tell us very much what we could do.
On SBRA, we can.
Okay?
'Cause we
Very clear.
We have our own repeater for SBRA. We have a direct on SBRA repeater. They can hear us at Station 1.
Okay.
Station 1 in Horton in that area is actually clearer than our Pikes Peak repeater in that area.
Yes, sir.
It's line of sight to the Horton from the airport.
It is there is an edge through there.
And I know on Pikes Peak, our Channel 10 that you're familiar with, we've talked to you personally on the tracks in Carrizozo, and it's on a water tank, and it's not nearly as high as the rest of them. So it can be done, and that's old. Some of the newer stuff is going to be far more advanced.
Sure.
I just want to think about everybody, all of the newer places, all of the bigger places are using internet to hook up repeaters. And I want to, I guess, throw this flag for caution in that our internet service up here at any one time has not been too great.
Right.
And if we put all of those eggs in that one basket, that could be something that could bite us very badly. And I won't say that again. I just thought I'd throw that out. It's an RF, we're in an RF world, really not in a world like Albuquerque with all of the back hauls that they have possible. So,
Right.
it's just a thought.
Certainly something we need to consider. I agree with you in that the internet is not as stable as we'd like it to be, so.
Right.
Okay, so is there any more thoughts that anybody has?
Well, and given.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just a question on the feasibility study, does anybody
Sir,
have an idea?
excuse me, you will have to speak, get up to a mic so that it's recorded. And state your name, just for the record.
I'm Ira Pearson, County Manager. The agenda item was the possibility of a feasibility study or have somebody come look at it. Did we do that before, or do we know somebody in costs so we can?
There are sit reps, there are contractors that can come in and do those studies through the state, and otherwise, I don't know the cost of that. It would be some calls we'd have to make to get the cost, but there's definitely companies out there that do that.
So
So I think that would be the next step. This was kind of, let's get it together and discuss it and see what direction or how we need to proceed. So I do believe that we probably ought to find out what that is going to cost and then bring that to the
To the next meeting,
next
maybe.
meeting.
Yep.
Correct.
For the towers you're talking about?
Or for making the,
The study.
Trent,
yes, ma'am, the
Study
study,
to
make
make
sure if it's
sure.
going to
Making
work.
sure the radios are going to work from there.
thank you. So how do you get Capitan and Carrizoso talking about this?
I'm just gonna have to call a meeting and tell them this is what's happening. This is, at the moment, they're operating off of my system, my radio, my frequencies. And they're gonna have to do something else, because if this happens for us all, it won't be mine anymore. It'll be ours and theirs as well.
Right.
So I can't tell them no at the moment. I mean, they're emergency vehicles and responders, so I can't very well tell them no at the moment. I think the word's kind of gotten out a little bit here and there, because I've heard some little grumbling about it, but fair is fair. And this isn't about one agency or one person, it's about the whole county, so, and including those individuals living in those communities. So it's just something that's gonna have to happen. And I mean, if we gotta carry a little extra weight because they just haven't got the money there or whatever, we'll work that out. But at the moment, I'm receiving nothing from either of those agencies.
Okay. How many dispatchers do you have right now?
At the moment, we're too short, so we have 6.
6.
And there again is a problem we have. We've hired one, we opened up, we had 1 applicant. I can dispatch this entire county, every agency in it from my office right now. We know that. Fire and EMS, village, everybody. But I can't attract people. I don't have the infrastructure to support a consolidated dispatch. I got 3 consoles, and I can't find folks who are willing to drive to Carrizoso in inclement weather and be in Carrizoso 10 to 6 at night by themselves.
I know.
So there are some disadvantages to even considering doing it at my office, and it's not the route I want to go. I need people in those chairs and emergency telecommunications officers that are bouncing things off of one another, and I don't have just one single dispatcher making a decision that could impact someone's life, and that's what's going on, and it's not fair.
Right.
Two systems.
Where does Corona and Hondo fall on this?
Well, they're not a village, and they're not a municipality.
No,
Okay.
they have
So-
volunteers, obviously, but they don't have they're not considered.
Corona doesn't have law enforcement, they
No.
just have fire department.
Oh, wow.
And
Well, it's
Hondo
us.
doesn't have law enforcement,
We-
but sheriff's office.
Okay.
I mean,
I didn't
so-
know that.
So,
Okay.
So, yeah, Capitan and Carrizoso right now are the only 2 agencies, and occasionally Game and Fish will bounce on there, and we'll help them out. The Livestock Board, occasionally we help those. We have MOUs with them too.
Okay.
And I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, and I know it's not one of our discussion items, but we brought it up earlier about how we move forward with, if the radios work, we have the brick and mortars, everybody speaks of the Horton, and we're ready to go. And as far as not waiting until have another meeting and another meeting, as far as the JPA that we already have, and we don't have a lawyer here today, but the JPA and then the percentages that we used on that to incorporate the county coming on board, as far as Underwood and Zach and Judy and everybody with the percentages and call volumes and how that worked. I don't know if we can work in that on the meantime, or.
Sure, I think we continue moving forward. And with the thought that you guys are going to come on board, we're going to have to essentially redo the JPA.
We are.
And we're going to have to review, call loads and volumes and all those things and refigure the amounts that are equitable for everybody. So I don't think we pause, I don't think we lift, I don't think we stop, we keep moving forward, but with the thought that they're coming to join us later. And when that happens, then we'll do the JPA and the reviews and all those things then.
So Chief, I know you've been part of a consolidated dispatch board from the ground level, so to speak. How does that work moving forward? Would we not still operate under a JPA, or would we actually be a consolidated dispatch board to where you have a director and then you have a board of directors?
Correct.
Going forward with your board? How does that work? Or
So my experience was in San Juan County, one of the first actual consolidated in the state, and they've been doing it for 25, 30 years now. The way it was set up there is it was a true consolidated. They had a director. The director answered to the board. The board consisted of the entities that were involved and had interest in the project. So I think with not having a lawyer here, we probably would need to find that out from them. But my thought would be to make it a true consolidated dispatch. We'd have a director and move forward in that direction.
okay. And then my other question, 'cause just thinking about this, do you have a representative from every single agency that is involved, like Capitan, Carrizozo, or do you have, or how does that work?
My concern with that is at some point, it's going to dilute the board. I think possibly, their call volume isn't much. And again, we're going to have to let the legal people figure it out. But my thought would be that they would work under you and pay you the percentage and you pay the percentage for all three, yourself and both of those entities. And then they could contract through you or something along those lines would be my thought.
I think we could certainly work that out, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, if we get cooperation on all sides, they're almost gonna have to some degree. They're gonna need to.
Yes, sir.
I would like to ask Manager Dodge if he has any guidance or advice to move this forward, as he's been a big part of this and will be.
I think, as I sit there listening, and then as we've had our council meeting yesterday, and we're looking at some of the challenges that we're facing, and, some of the meetings that we have, Ira, with some of the local administrative leaders, the problem's bigger than just communication. It's emergency services countywide. And I think we need to kind of take a step back and look at that and look at the whole thing. Right now, the ambulance service and transport is not funded correctly. Communication is not funded correctly. And, there's a 1/8 enactment that's available to put in place. And, just looking at the numbers of what it would generate within Ruidoso is right about $700,000.
Yeah.
When we go countywide, it's going to be considerably more than that. So I think we're looking, instead of trying to figure out percentages and everything else, you put that in place. And then you look at the consolidated dispatch rules and what's already in place. The equipment, the infrastructure to make it work it's all achievable. It's just a price tag to it, and that's how come you're calling it a feasibility study. It's really a telemetry report and identifying what type of equipment that we need. But, I think the conversation's bigger, and when you look at that enactment, it's a county enactment for 1/8, and it's available for communication, ambulance, and behavioral health services. And all three of those areas we're short. We're not providing the level of service that we should be. So I think that's where we need to start the discussion and then get back to the basics of putting that in place. And, everything else is already laid out on how it works. So, that's my thought. Instead of us trying to figure out, who's going to kick in what, or we're going to be able to bring on Capitan or Carrizozo or whoever, let's just let, our authority that's already in place work for itself. That's my idea.
Thank Thank you, Mr. Dodge. We had some discussion about that 1/8, it's been a while ago. As again, my experience has been in the Four Corners, and that was in place there and completely funded their issues. So I think it is something that we ought to look at and see if the citizens of the county would be willing to take that on. I think it would definitely be a help for all of us. I don't know what the procedure would be to move forward with presenting that, but.
I think it's talking about it, maybe looking at that model in different areas, how it's working, and then approach the county manager and the commissioners and let them know that we see that this is a big need, and, you know, this is the way to pull it together. It's already under their authority, and move forward.
I agree.
I'd be willing to help with whatever I can.
Okay, thank
I've
you.
worked on setting up that process there in Guadalupe County, and I also worked in it in San Miguel County.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
Kind of, Ira.
So Ira Pearson again, that GRT, I'm not speaking on behalf of commissioners, but the current feel is they don't want to raise taxes. If this board and especially Village of Ruidoso came and said, we've already done the work, the people need it and want it, that's a different story. As of right now, the county, I'm not going to speak on the commissioners, the county, they don't want us to be the highest tax, the highest GRT in the state. And by adding those increments that are available, it would push us to the top. We'd be up near Taos and Tallahassee Valley when we start implementing them. But I think if we went to the commissioners with that information, saying, you know what, the people do want it, and let's get it implemented, that would probably be a different.
Plus, it's a need. You know, our services are lacking, so.
Yeah, we feel it daily.
And I'm sure the outlying areas, the Coronas, the Carazozos, those areas that are getting ambulances in 45 minutes and then an hour and a half back to a hospital or 2 hours, that's not okay.
Yep.
Or police services and running hot and the safety of our officers, our first responders, and providing care, it's lacking, for lack of a better term. It could be a whole lot better. And if we're going to spend time and money on something, I feel like that, like you said, is what the people, and with you know, the opportunity of tax and service and equipment, it's already there, and tapping into it is what they deserve.
I know from my other experiences that was never an issue for the citizens there. They were glad to accept that 1/8 for that because of the services that it rendered for them. But I think we need to sell it, I guess, is what we're talking about, right?
Yep,
Sure.
that's exactly.
Well, and I'd like to be able to do that, sell it on a positive note rather than have to present someone having passed away as a need. I want to be able to do it as a proactive measure versus
Absolutely.
managing by disaster. Today could have been bad for any number of us or the citizens, and simply because we couldn't get on the same page. We just couldn't, so.
And I was listening to that call this morning,
Yeah.
like, as I was coming into work, and I could hear some of your officers, and I couldn't hear some of them. I could hear you loud and clear. And then down at the bottom of Angus, I couldn't hardly hear the deputy that was down there, so.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said, I'm in a dark hole here, I guess, because I couldn't reach any of them. And so I think this is a step in the right direction. Mr. Dodge, I appreciate your input on that, and whatever we need to do I really want to make this come to fruition. I really want to make this happen. I just feel it's necessary. And for the most part, I will say largely, this community, and I know in every corner of this county, supports public safety, law enforcement, EMS, fire. They come out in droves when we need volunteers. I mean, so again, if that 1/8 is something we need to explore, then I mean, we're blessed here where other places aren't quite near fortunate.
I agree. And lost my thought. I agree with you in that we need to sell this kind of like the firemen do. They always sell the positives, and we as cops always sell the negatives, seems like. So,
We'll put it on,
so I agree, and I think we need to push it out and sell it, and you know, it is a positive thing. It is something that's not only needed, but is going to be beneficial to everybody within the county, so,
Save one life.
sir.
Mr. Chairman, from my perspective, I think anything's doable. And, I did meet with the sheriff and, the chief asked me to, and we sit down and talked and, we can craft any agreement, structure it in any way, we can make this happen. I don't see that there's any roadblocks. And, my statements are based on, there's already authority in place, there's processes in place. Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, I think if we're to sell that, but that shouldn't stop us from moving forward with Consolidated Dispatch.
Definitely.
I'm just saying that there's a bigger picture out there. The hospital's been suffering with trying to even get people transported out of here, and that's a concern, and if we have to just, rely on, flying somebody out, that has a big economic impact to an individual and their insurance companies and whatnot. So, it's just not the communication need, it's the whole need for EMS, fire, rescue, all the emergency services need to be properly and appropriately funded. We here in Ruidoso, and I'm sure it's the same for all of you, we're a permanent population of 8,000, but we're a weekend population of how much? 50,000. So you all are providing emergency services, and being funded at a level of a permanent population, but you're providing for that times a greater population. And, for quite some time, I don't think that we've had these discussions with our police and our fire. We're not funding them to the proper staffing levels. And sometimes I think it's because we don't have those proper authorities implemented here that support those services. And I just think that it's something that we really need to take a look at hard and stand together on this and make sure that all the emergency services are properly funded.
And we're already spending the time and effort and money and processes rather than build it for what we need today. If we build it for the future, tomorrow, we won't be having the same conversation in 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 years and put them in the same situation.
Well, I know it's a challenge just coming in on this late like we were. Unfortunately, it wasn't by design, but circumstance, and you know that, so. But again, I appreciate everybody. I appreciate your consideration, your support, whatever we need to do to see if we can make this happen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
I
all.
think, do we need to modify this line item or this agenda point to be able to move forward with the study? Okay. Did I get a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion to do that.
Second.
Excuse me, what was that motion? Can you read, Charles?
To move forward with a
Feasibility study.
study and, we call it,
Yeah, I would make an amendment to just say, the motion or the amendment is not just to purchase the equipment, but to go out for a possible quote or RFP or whatever that is. I don't know the amount of the money for a third party or a contractor to do this study as the board or.
So, and I think we probably need to find that out prior to authorizing any expenditures, but get a quote or an amount, basic rough amount for what it would cost to move forward with the study.
But can I have before we vote, do we need to get together and talk about that, the tax, how we go about doing that? And I know it's going to, going to be a presentation to the commissioners, but.
Mr. Chairman, Counselor, I don't know if call it Counselor, this is Counselor, but board member, I guess.
I go by anything.
Susan.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think what you're really talking about is two different things, right? You're wanting to do a telemetry study to find out,
Right.
what's the need to improve the communication systems to cover countywide, to build in redundancy.
Right.
You know, that's one conversation that we're having as far as feasibility study. Then the other part of it, you know, is the feasibility of consolidated dispatch, maintenance, equipment, operations, personnel, that type of information. We can handle that internally and provide that information to the board for consideration. That's not going to cost you anything other than our time. And then the third part of it is, you know, how do we start the conversation about 1/8 gross receipts tax? And I think all those 3 points can work, you know, on separate paths.
Sure.
You know, the 1/8 gross receipts tax, I think, needs to start at, you know, the county manager's level, and something that, you know, I think you know, that's under their authority, so that's something that they would have to implement. And it could be from a recommendation from this board, you know, to the sheriff's office saying, we're interested in improving emergency services countywide, and we're willing to work together, and we would like to have some consideration on this item. So to me, it's 3 separate things from.
I agree, and I think the third, the 8th tax is probably going to have to be on an agenda before we can move forward with it, since it wasn't at all on this, but we can get it on the next agenda and then move forward with it from there so that it's done properly. But I agree with you in that they're separate things and they can be done simultaneously or take their own paths. So I guess what we're looking for a motion for at the moment is to get a quote or a price to do the feasibility study, correct? Is that where it needs to be?
Sir.
Okay, so can I get a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to approve the, getting a quote for a feasibility study to assure that the communications from the Horton are going to be adequate for to bring the county on board.
Can I get a second?
that, yeah.
Okay. Chief Chavez?
Aye.
Counselor Miller?
Aye.
Counselor Letterman?
Aye.
Joe Kasubuski?
Aye.
Chair Scott?
Aye.
Chief Thetford?
Aye.
Assistant Chief Geritani?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item would be reports from board members. Thank you, sir. Reports from board members. Do we have anything that we need to bring forward?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Jimmy Romero wanted me to, he called me this morning and wanted me to let y'all know he will not be able to be on this committee anymore. And he regrets that, but he resigned as city councilor last night. And he wants everybody to know that as a member of Lincoln County Fire Department, he will be available at any time for anybody that needs him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other reports? Okay. For me, I'd like to thank Acting Chief Giordano for coming and participating with the board. We thought we had a new fire chief hired, and that situation changed. So Chief Giordano has stepped up and been doing a fantastic job for us, and so wish to welcome him to this group of insanity.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay,
So nothing further? Do you have something, Chief?
I will just say that, you know, since we are the Consolidated Dispatch Board and the operations of, you know, bringing the county on board and where we're going to host that from or run our operations from the Horton Complex, the plans are completely approved. They are getting ready to start construction on the Horton Complex, so that way we can get the ball rolling. I think they're looking at like 45 days from now to breaking ground, and then it should be done at the end of next spring. So we're got that path rolling in the right direction, and we're excited to be working with White Sands Construction and all the subcontractors. So we have a meeting within the next couple of weeks with some of the contractors that are specific to dispatch. So we do have that ball rolling.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay. We do not have a reason for closed session, and so we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
And he said just hit this down here.
BYOD?
Oh, no. He said to go back over here.
I was gonna do what
Yeah.
he asked me to do
Oh.
earlier, so that I can see if it works. He said to, I just didn't wanna do it during the meeting.
And here I just have to X out, huh? I don't have to.
He said on the camera page of the touchpad, hit the button that says.
I need to
restore
make sure,
default camera.
oh, wait, hold on. I know. I need to make sure, I press that green button again, huh?
I don't know, it didn't work either, so.